Hello, and welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt. You are watching, the chat is on. Awesome. Okay, you are watching a live hangout, flip through and Q&A of the Convocation. The Convocation is a book that we wrote, Absolute Tabletop. We wrote it, and it is set in my home world of Aeronoth. It's about this organization called the Convocation. These guys, convokers, they ride on griffins. They met out justice to those who deserve it. They're peacekeepers. They bring down tyrants and dragons and evildoers. They're essentially Jedi on griffins. They're one of my favorite aspects of my world, and they have been what's the word I'm looking for? Eternalized, immortalized in this book, which we have in front of you. I'm going to go ahead and go over to click on Barker's screen here. This is what we're going to be watching tonight while we're doing the flip through. This is the beautiful hardcover, not hardcover, that's not what I mean, hard copy of Aeronoth, the Convocation. Our books are soft cover. They have full color interiors, full color covers, obviously, and the covers are glossy and the interior is matte. And it looks so nice and it feels so nice. Look at that. It's been a long road, ladies and gentlemen, but we're here.
Yeah, they really are just amazing. You know, the quality, it's beautiful. Like, it's even better than seeing it on, say, an iPad screen or something else. And I didn't think that was possible.
That is the one thing I will say is I totally took the art for granted, and I say that, you know, I super duper appreciate the art and looking at it on the screen, it looks great, but there's something about having a book and flipping through the book and seeing art that you've collaborated with an artist on and seeing the characters that you've created come to life and the landscapes. It's just, yeah, it's awesome. I apologize if I seem a little bit flustered. Right before we went live, I realized the chat was not working, and this is a flip through and Q&A, and I didn't want it to just be a flip through. So, but we got it all sorted. It looks like. I'm glad that the chat is now working. I'm going to be watching that while we talk. So, how do we want to do this, guys? This is our first physical flip through. Do we want to start from the beginning and go through and talk about things director's commentary style as they come up?
Man, and I think, dude, I think it's totally up to you because this is your book. Like, Matt, you're looking at an RPG book that you wrote, and Barker's holding it. And
I know.
Look, anyone who's watching this, we're relatively new at this, and that's an awesome feeling for me. That is a really cool thing. So however you want to do it, man.
Yeah, I will say that when my proof copy showed up on my doorstep, and this isn't even correct. This is wrong. This is a wrong copy. The pages are flipped because we're dinguses. But when it showed up and I was holding it in my hands and looking through it, I got a little bit teary-eyed because I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to be an author, and I wanted to have a book that people can read. And you know, when I was a kid, I always thought it would be novels. I always thought that I would be, you know, a fiction author. But this is so much better. This is, you know, a collaborative world, and I'm putting something tangible and usable out there for people to get inspired by and use at their game table. And it's just, it really is. It's a goal realized. It is a long-term goal realized for me. And I can't thank these guys enough who are sitting here with me for figuring all of this out and writing this book with me and laying it out and just, you know, shouldering all of this with me. So we none of us could do this alone. That is very important to point out, is that none of us are capable of this alone.
Well, now we are that I have all the secrets.
That's true. And I think if anyone's wondering, we're going to do this with all our books. All the books that are large enough, you know, soon we're going to be coming out with Copper Jackals. The Copper Jackals is going to be like this. Be a Better Campaign Master Book 1 is going to be like this. All of the new books that we release are going to come out with print versions, you know, maybe a couple weeks or so after we release the PDF version. You know, that timeline is going to be changed perhaps, but this has always been a goal for us. And if you're in the industry, you know that it is not a cakewalk turning a PDF into a physical book.
Yeah.
There's obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And so this first ever flip through, I think, is just awesome.
Yeah.
I'm over the moon right now, and I can't wait for everyone to see it.
And
Absolutely.
can I mention something about that too?
No.
Fair enough. No, that's fair. You're right.
If you give
Did it
them
right
a line
thing.
up to say no.
So, when it first came in the mail, first of all, my mailman bent it in half like a savage. Like, you have to have no self-respect as a mailman to take a package that's hard boxed.
Yeah, a box. It was in a
Because
box.
It took the flexing of muscles to bend this thing. So it was a force of will. Anyway, he jams it in my mailbox. When I got it, I open it up, and aside from the pages being bent, when I opened this book, I swear to you, I was reading it for the first time.
Yeah.
I have seen the words hundreds of times. I helped edit and write some of those words. I've seen the PDF. I've used the PDF in games. But holding that book in my hand, my eye was seeing the information in a different way, and I did not expect that. And I was flipping through it going, oh, I was reading it. It was the weirdest feeling in the world. So I just can't believe that it was so different for me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, we definitely
For sure.
read differently with a physical page than we do with a screen. That's for sure. We actually have a question already. Is the book small or are Barker's hands huge? Barker has large hands. Barker is a big person. The book is standard 8.5 by 11 size, so it is regular paper. Essentially, it's 11 by 17 paper folded over on itself. So it uses page spreads, and then it's all adhered together with glue. So
there you go. I don't know if that helps.
There we go. Now we need a banana for scale.
Yeah, banana, because we got to know how big this pen is. So someone get me a banana, and then we got to know how big the banana is. So someone get me another book.
Someone give me another book.
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
Or a single ruler.
Yes, or that. That makes too much sense though, Tim.
I know. Yeah. Give me a dollar for steel.
I'm gonna sound super shilly right now, but I think it's important for us to, for people watching who are like, this is a cool product, this is a cool book, I want it at my gaming table. Where can people get it, Matt?
You can get it right now on AbsoluteTabletop.com. If you go to AbsoluteTabletop.com, it's the first item on our main storefront page. And the cool thing about this is not only will you get the book in a few days, in a week or so after it ships, you will also get the PDF immediately. So you get a free PDF if you order the book, and the PDF is revised from the last time that we released it. So if you already have the PDF, you should go download it again because it's revised. It has a map in there and a couple of other little sort of tweaks in there that we noticed after we released it. So we took the opportunity to kind of finesse things a little bit. So let's start flipping through this bad boy, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, and we'll be answering questions and anything that you'd like us to address or talk about publishing, print-on-demand books, the process that we go through, anything like that. Just put it in the chat, and we will see it. So
even if it's not related to what we're doing.
Even if it's not, ask us anything you want, and we reserve the right to not answer your questions.
Yeah, that's probably true. So here's the thing, actually. This is what I want to... If we're going to start with a question for Matt, because this is one of my favorite pages in the entire book, and it's the first one. The quote about Aronoth. I want to know, in 30 seconds or less, how you came up with that and why it was important that this one single sentence resemble Aronoth. What?
I'm going to time it while you do that. You said 30 seconds or less, so this is a fistful of roulette. Hold on.
Well, no, dude. No, your timers are broken because you guys always fail at your.
Because we always go over.
No, the timers work perfectly. We're broken.
It's part of the problem, I guess. It's the time
But
of
yeah,
work.
Matt, why is this? Why did you decide on this as your elevator pitch?
So I suppose I took the 2 or 3 sort of chief elements of the setting, and just sort of that sentence right there is something that I've been working with and toying with since I started Aeronaut, and that's sort of its final form, I suppose.
Barker, why don't you read it?
That's a really good idea. I got a shoddy internet connection. I'm inside of an Eskimo's igloo near Saskatchewan, and I don't have much in terms of internet. But I will read this quote. Aeronaut, an ancient and enigmatic land, riddled with long-buried secrets and plagued by undying darkness, forged in dragon fire and quenched in the blood of the gods. I mean, holy schnapps.
Yeah, I think initially I wrote it for Lore of Aeronaut, which was a video series that I do on the channel. Occasionally I'll put out videos talking about the history and lore of the world of Aeronaut, and that's where it initially comes from, but that's like a slightly different version of it.
Awesome.
And I can say that when I first read that, because, it was in the doc, I hated Matt's guts because I was so jealous. I was so jealous, and I was like, man, this guy, and I don't know if there's a word for that. We should probably come up with an internal word for that. But I love oh, man, you did a good job. Now I have to do a good job back and forth, like in AbTab. But when I read that, I was like...
It's like that upping the ante thing,
Yeah.
Yep. Let me throw this out there. I think it's important for us to comment on this.
Yeah.
There's an error in this book that will be fixed very soon, and that is that the amazing man who drew this map is not credited in the front matter. He is credited for the Aeronaut logo. That's Nate Vanderzee from Sellsword Maps. This is his map, and we were so excited to put it in here, but completely spaced on adding Sellsword Maps to the credits. So please go visit Sellsword Maps, that website, and throw some support his way, man. He makes some stellar maps.
Absolutely. Yeah, he made Aeronaut come to life and become real, and it's really awesome to be able to put it in this first print book, to have that gorgeous map in there. So, and you can also, hey, here's something else, Shilly. You can actually buy that map in 18 by 24 poster format on the website right now as well. And I have one. I need to hang it up, but it is absolutely beautiful. I love that map.
Dude, I'm
oh my gosh. There's a question. Did you see John Poland's question? He said, after all the releases, will the bindings, when aligned, create the map of Aeronaut?
If you think we're that coordinated to be able to do
you are right.
Dude,
because
also,
it will happen. It's a promise now. No, I'm just kidding.
I promise right now. You see this blank check?
I was going to say, to give some insight,
Cash the check, guys. I got to go.
this book is 52 pages, which sounds like a lot of pages, but it's this thin. It's hard to probably tell, especially if it's clicked on Barker, but you can see.
Yep.
If we did that, it would take about 500 Aeronaut books to make a quarter of the map.
That's
No,
right.
but in all honesty, we did our best to fit stuff on the spine, because there is a minimum width that you can get away with, and so yeah, just in general, overall, the entire process has been arduous.
Yeah.
Converting it and everything, but now that we have this one done, the rest should fall into place relatively easily. I say relatively because there is still a process, but I'm very excited to see our other books in print just like this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I think it's going to be so cool to see Copper Jackals and Campaign Master, in particular, in printed format.
I think I'm going to cry when I have Campaign Master 1 on my shelf. I think I'm going to cry a single tear every morning, a single tear of happiness.
Like I said, man, when I got the Convocation, I teared up a little bit.
So did I. Genuinely, it was a Friday. I had dinner plans with my wife. It was bent in half, and we were already late. And I'm standing in the kitchen. The front door's open. My wife is in the car. My daughter's in the car, and I'm standing in the kitchen. The light of the evening just bathing this book, and I'm flipping through it, and I'm just like, and I just started to well up. And I'm not going to downplay how emotional it was for me. I was like,
dude, for sure.
Because we spend so much time and just like as you're flipping through like the art and all that stuff, we toil over that stuff, and it's like just holding it in your hands, you're like, man, it was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And I'm going to be going through again. I'm just giving some people some inspiration for questions, if they have any questions about certain parts.
No, that's perfect.
This is the Tabletop Terrors breakout spread. You want to tell the story about the breakout box and how it became a breakout spread?
Sure. So James and I write too much. That's the end. That's the end of that story.
Enough. Just enough.
So we have a tendency, especially I have a tendency, to take what should be a paragraph and turn it into a 2-page spread. That breakout box, I think, was supposed to start out with a couple of quick ideas that would go on a quarter of a page or a third of a page. And then I was like, hey, guys, you might want to look at my breakout box. James and I have gone pretty hard in the paint here.
In your defense, you're taking this whole book and putting it in Dragon Grin. They're in only 2 pages. So you're basically creating an entire book using 2 pages. So
yeah,
I love this part of the book.
It's like a YouTube 5-minute supercut. Watch the Jason Bourne trilogy in 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then this happens, and boom, and then there's Dragon Grin, Convocation, and Dragon.
Yep. Any questions?
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm mesmerized looking at the book. Let's see here. Why did the Convocation choose griffins as their steed of choice? Well, it was sort of out of necessity because the Convocation was formed during this event known as the Khazran Civil War that was happening. It was essentially 2 brothers. One of them was the emperor of the Khazran Empire, and the other one was the younger brother, and he was the sort of the general of the armies. And the emperor became a lich and was doing some really shady things. A civil war broke out, and this guy, this rebel, his name was Eras, he fled to these floating islands, and they found griffins there, and they sort of made an alliance with these griffins to help them win back their kingdom, essentially, and that partnership has continued for 2,000 years. Let's see here. Is there a Dragon Grin chapter of the Convocation? So there's not Convokers in Dragon Grin, but there is something very similar. Do you want to talk about that, Tim or James?
Sure. Yeah.
James is playing Stellaris right now.
I'm like Rocket League. I'm like, nah, dude, Stardew Valley. I gotta harvest these melons.
I'll know.
So,
yeah,
fishing.
Rocket League.
So the important thing to note is that there is Aranoth is where the Convocation is. This is Matt's world that he's created. That we all write in, but it's his baby for sure. And to that, in that same respect, Dragon Grin is Tim and my sort of world. And again, Barker and Matt heavily collaborate on that with us, especially in our books and everything. We write everything together, but basically they're separate worlds. So while the Convocation whole cloth doesn't necessarily fit sort of into Dragon Grin, based on this, sort of with inspiration from this breakout box, we created a thing called, these guys called the Peacekeepers. I guess they're not all guys. This sort of force, these people that keep the peace in this area known as the neutral zone. Sort of these people that are sandwiched between a rock and a hard place, almost literally. And they ride bears, different kind of bears as their mount, and they're a bit lawless, and they keep the peace. And it's a very similar organization, but I would say not quite as structured, and not quite as structured is the word I'd use. They're a bit unofficial, but those are sort of the Convokers in Dragon Grin.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, to me, the concept of the Convocation and the concept of the Peacemakers is similar in this way. I love the law only matters if you can enforce it. So if you show up and you can't do anything to stop the criminals or the villain or whatever, what are you going to do? arrest me. It's like that kind of a mindset in my mind. So I love that the Peacemakers and the Convocation, they are super powered to a degree. Their abilities make it so that they can back up the law that they're upholding, because that's important. If you're going into a dangerous, enigmatic, any portion of Aeronaut, any wild portion of Aeronaut, or any portion where there's danger, if there's something awful happening, you can't stop it as just one lone adventurer, but one lone convoker could, maybe. And that's the difference to me between just a standard adventurer and a convoker, is they have the ability not just to see what's happening that's wrong. They don't need to gather up an adventuring party. They fly in there with their griffin and they make it happen. And so, yeah, the Peacemakers are very similar to that, except they ride fell bears, and that's all outlined in the book. So if you want some tips on how to reskin the Convocation to be something else, that's what our breakout box does. And the rest of the book is all of those abilities and feats and boons that make you more superpowered.
I think this is my favorite part of all of our books, is the breakout boxes. And I know this is like over 50 pages of awesome content, but my favorite parts are always these little bits in which the other two people or two channels that are helping to make the product, the book, jump in and write their own thoughts and just kind of improvise a little bit. Almost every breakout box is done within 30 minutes because it's like an inspirational shot of nitrous oxide. And that's why in every single one of our books, physical books that you're going to get, but even the PDFs now, there's just tons of inspiration. Even if Aeronaut is a little too fantasy for you, or even if Dragon Grin's a little too rough around the edges, there's stuff in everything. And I love this breakout box, because it just goes to show how this book is not about, it's about the Convocation, but it's not. It's about creating something awesome in your own world.
And let me put you on the spot about that, Barker, because you said something really cool in the chat the other day. Why don't you tell me, roughly, what is the Convocation like in Enkea, your campaign world? Roughly.
Oh, dude. Okay, so Enkea, I've decided recently, is going to have like 17th, 18th century technology. Picture like the Patriot with, armies of musketeers just firing into a legion of wizards, something crazy like that. Airships, stuff like that. So my thought was that the Convocation would be like, or the organization based on the Convocation would be like a security force defending the, double quotes here, the England of Enkea, right? The English power in the 17th, 18th century, like fighting pirates and shit. Like picture Pirates of the Caribbean with more magic and with ships that fly through the sky. Like that's exciting for me.
Exactly. And the book is fully outfitted with a core rule structure that lets you do that with just some reskinning. And that's what I love. It's got all the inspiration. It's got the hierarchy of the organization. It's got the Griffin section, which we're getting to. All that stuff's built in. Boom. Drop it in Enkea. Reskin it to be a little more Pirates of the Caribbean, and you're ready to go. You're ready to hand this to your players and have them go nuts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of what we really like to create in our supplements is not something that is intended to use just wholesale. Although you can open it up and use it exactly as it's written. We design it that way. It can be used that way. But the idea is that you want to take the bits and pieces that you really like, tailor it to your world, and make it work in your campaigns. And I think that we've seen that work with the Convokers, and I've heard from lots of other people that say, hey, I have Griffin Riders in my world. It's not. But they're not really like peacekeepers, but I'm going to use all the Griffin stuff. Or I have this order of Templars, who are more like traditional knights, but I'm going to use the Convoker rules for, giving them abilities and stuff like that. So, here's a question. Natural 20 Games asks, is there a module or adventure hooks for the Convocation on there?
Yeah, dude.
Parker, will you turn to
talk about the missions?
The mission generator. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called Convoker Missions, and I'm absolutely turning there right now. if I can find it. I might be
I
on
think
the
it's
wrong
after
page.
the NPCs, isn't it?
I love
Let me see.
that you're flipping through it looking for it. That's just so cool. Like, usually we're scrolling. I'm like, hold on, let me scroll.
Yeah, hang
Well,
on,
Let me
me
check
find
the table of content. That's
Barker,
clever,
can
Barker.
you Control F that physical book, please?
it. So this right here is a roll table that you can roll on 4 times. It's a D20 roll table. You roll on it 4 times, and it creates a mission for you. And what sorts of things are on there, Barker?
Okay, so the first thing you roll for is an antagonist. There are things such as a vampire or a warlord or an amateur necromancer or an invading army.
I got a 16.
Okay, so you have a wealthy entrepreneur. Remember that, Tim. The wealthy entrepreneur is the antagonist.
Right. James, can you
The
type
trouble.
Yeah.
The trouble is going to be, here's some options. We have frequent raid, living dead, natural disaster. What'd you get, Tim?
I rolled a 14.
14 is a foreign invasion. So the enemy, again, is a wealthy entrepreneur, and the trouble is there's a foreign invasion happening. The location, there are a lot of different locations here, like a fortified vault or a trading outpost, even a zoo. Actually, my favorite is the zoo.
That's awesome, and I got an 8.
You got an 8. Sinking ship. So the trouble is a foreign invasion. The location, it's happening aboard a sinking ship, and the antagonist is a wealthy entrepreneur. What's the obstacle, Tim? Go ahead and roll for that.
Let's go. It is a 4.
A 4. Contested territory. Okay, see, I believe in fate. This is the perfect one-shot framework. You're in contested territory. There's a foreign invasion going on. It's happening by sea, and you're aboard a sinking ship, and the enemy is this wealthy entrepreneur who owns the fleet, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like a way to build a Convoker mission from scratch and run it.
Yeah,
You know what?
and we actually did just that before the book came out. We ran a fully improv mission. You can actually find it on my channel if you search for Convoker. We rolled on that table, and I ran a completely improv mission, and it was so much fun. We had an absolute blast. It was really, really fun.
The other thing that I love about that, I don't know that all of them would apply for this, but Aeronaut is a fantasy setting that we use for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But not only could this be used in other things, basically that one that we just rolled could be used for a space game or a Numenera game, or, this is just, like we talked about earlier, our books a lot of times just have inspiration all over. And basically, I don't know, I just think that that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely usable outside of the book, just like the Griffin rules are, just like the Convoker abilities are. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like these could be Copper Jackal missions, or just regular adventurer missions. Like this is obviously tailored towards the Convokers, but you can use this for anything, man.
Yeah. Be a Better Fistful of Gothnogs asks, how long till Harbinger?
What is that?
July 39.
Yeah, July 39th.
Drop date, July 39th.
Drop date.
So
Confirmed,
mark your
July
calendars.
39th.
J38.
2039.
2039. No, it's funny that you ask about that. We've been working on Harbinger a lot more than we were before. Doing the damage reduction sort of lit a fire under us. We've been working on classes. We've been working on magic, weapons, and we're developing the system around it, and we're hoping to get out a playtest sometime in the next 6-7 months here. Hopefully less than that, but we're definitely making a lot of progress, and there's going to be a playtest sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all jacked up on Harbinger right now, man. I can't lie.
Harbinger of Sorrow.
I am. I'm really excited about Harbinger, and it's really coming along. I think you guys are gonna dig it for sure. Okay, back to the Convocation. There's another question. Will all the other PDFs be available as books? Yes, most of our books will be available in physical form. There are a couple of our books on the site that are not. They don't have enough pages to warrant a physical copy. I think, obviously Goblin Go-Karts is too few. I think Is Misty Meadows too few?
I think
I don't know, but I know Goblin Go-Karts would be like shipping someone a folder with Goblin Go-Karts printed out inside of it.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as I know.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, who doesn't want 28 consecutive pages of Goblin Go-Kart Blowout? Someday, you're going to get Goblin Go-Kart.
You can run it 28 times.
I'm pretty sure the only two, I may be wrong, do not quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that the only two we can't do are Goblin Go-Karts and Riptide Raid.
Oh, yeah.
Goblin Go-Karts is 2 pages, Riptide Raid is 11. Now, that doesn't mean that, and again, don't quote me on this, but that doesn't mean we won't eventually repackage Riptide Raid to make it print on demand, because all we got to do is add 7 pages. You just give Tim and I like 3 days, and we'll be...
We'll do a 7-page breakout box on how to run Riptide Raid in a bathroom.
We're going to redefine what a pirate is. All right, everybody, buckle up.
Here we go, guys. But, yeah, so I believe everything but that will eventually be print on demand.
Absolutely. Joshua Tungate asks, I know it's off topic, but any news on Provoker Season 2? I don't think that's off topic. I think it's tabletop RPG related.
And it's in Aeronaut.
And it's in Aeronaut, yeah. So Provoker Season 2 will hopefully be happening in... we're going to shoot for September, but we don't have that for sure. We haven't found a date yet. But I'm really excited about it, and I think you guys will be excited about it too, and we'll have some news on that coming very soon, I'm sure. So look for that in the next couple months here. Let's look at the Griffin stuff, shall we?
We shall. And while Barker's flipping to that, one of the things that was really cool to me about the missions table is that it's not all run-and-gun combat.
Yeah.
Like, to show that the Convocation, because they have multiple orders, people who are chaplains, people who are envoys, and people who are, what's the other word? Corruptors. Wardens. Corruptors. And I love that the mission table isn't just going to be go here, fight this, destroy this. There's like some good stuff in there. So.
Yeah, for sure. I love like natural disasters as the antagonist. Like when we did that mission creation session, it was pretty cool because we actually ended up with something that, like, when we all jumped in thinking, all right, let's fight some people, but it actually turned out to be more of a rescue mission than anything else, and that was really cool.
So cool.
So, these are the Griffin companions, and this is a lot of people's favorite part. Is this spread right here? If someone wants to
definitely
talk about
my favorite.
So real quick, Matt, there was another question, and I think it's an easy one for you to answer. Will you be making more Telltale Trinket videos?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Okay. I don't have any more filmed right now, but I'm definitely planning on doing it.
He's going to make paper plates of all of our faces so that we can all...
by the way...
Oh, do you have it?
Hold on. Hold it. Can you hold it up?
I did not consider that.
Maybe make sure you're sharing your screen, Matt.
So that people can see how creepy that is.
Make sure you're sharing your screen. Oh my goodness.
Can I just say this about myself? Can you hold that? Do you see how much fatter my face was?
Dude, Tim, you have lost so much weight. You are a skinny boy.
Ooh, I am a skinny boy. Since
but
that
look at you look a little bit heavier in this, but look at the truth.
I'm 2D! I'm only 2D, Mama, no! I want to exist in 3 dimensions, Matt. Oh, you know what the crazy thing is? They call me Mr. Plate. I still exist in the dimension of time. It's blowing my mind. I exist in 3 dimensions, but one's gone. I'm done.
Oh boy.
How about them Griffin tables?
Sorry,
so
this was a last-minute addition to this book. Do you guys remember that? I do. The book was pretty much done. I had it written, and we had pretty much completed editing for the most part. We were still sort of finessing things and finalizing everything. And I just realized that there wasn't enough stuff about the Griffins. And I love when you get to completely customize something, an aspect of your character, whether it be a weapon or an item, mount, anything like that. Taking bits and pieces and super customizing something of yours. That's one of the reasons why I love like the inventory system in like Fallout 4, where you take different pieces and you make a totally unique armor or a totally unique gun. I use that mentality in the Griffin roll tables, and I called on these guys to help me out. We filled these things out, and essentially it's a series of roll tables. You roll a d20 a few times, and you come out with a Griffin that is completely unique with different colored feathers, different colored fur, different physical features, personalities, and there's also a name generator as well. This is my favorite portion of the book, for sure.
Matt, you got a d20 near you?
Yeah, no.
I do. I just wanted to give you a chance to roll on it. I was just going to say, if you want to grab a d20, it would be really cool to show people how easy it is to come up with a super in-depth Griffin.
If you've got a d20, you go for it, man.
I sure do. All right, Barker, can you walk me through it?
Yep, absolutely. The first thing we're going to decide is I sound like I'm running a game show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
the first thing we are going to decide is the fur color. Ladies and gentlemen, the fur color.
$1. My fur color's $1.
Last name's Barker already. What'd you get?
6.
Awesome. So the fur color, I love this. Is my favorite color of fur.
Got that. Last name is Barker already. Don't think I didn't catch that.
Oh, dude, good. I'm glad you did. This is the fur on this Griffin is charcoal colored. It is charcoal.
All right.
Keep going. Next is the feather color. We're going to be coming up with the feather color, ladies and gentlemen, right here, right now. Spin the wheel.
What's a 5?
You got a 5. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Charcoal fur, ruby-colored feathers.
Oh,
this is like
that's awesome.
Black
already, that's
and
so
red.
cool.
This guy's like a hot topic Griffin.
Yeah, dude.
Dude,
He just
his
walked
name
out
is
of
gonna
Spencer's
be.
Gifts with a lava lamp that's gonna break in 2 weeks.
Dude, you're gonna roll on the table, and his name's gonna be Dark.
Dark. All right, go on. Physical traits.
Dark. Oh, natural 1. Uh-oh.
Ooh, a 1. Okay, we got eyebrow piercing and black lipstick. No, I'm just kidding.
Green contacts.
My Ninja Turtles T-shirt.
This Griffin actually has tiger stripes, and I'd like to think that they're red on the black.
Absolutely.
I'm dying, man. I'm all right.
On the hindquarters.
The hindquarters, yes. What about the disposition there?
It is a 19.
Ooh, a 19. It's an independent Griffin. No.
Dude, no. Barker, it's roll table fate. It's the roll table fate.
All right, the Griffin has an independent personality, which is really awesome, and actually we go into depth a lot about how the Griffins are trained and stuff in previous sections of the book, so that'll give you an idea of the runner.
You can teach them tricks. There's a lot of lore about how Griffins are born and how they mature and how long they live, how much they eat and drink, and all of that kind of stuff. So I channeled my inner like Pokemon trainer, and I was like, I want to put so much stuff about the Griffins in here. So yeah.
Yep. Well, Tim, we've got ourselves an emo goth Griffin. Let's give our emo goth Griffin an emo goth name like Shadowbeak or something. What? Roll a d20.
Let's see. All right, so we're on a 12.
Onyx is the first. The first is the suffix for the name.
Roll table fate. All right, and then an 18.
An 18. Onyx Diver is the name of this Griffin. So Diver, I like how it tells you a lot about the story of the Griffin too.
Yeah.
Like maybe its tactics or strategies. It's like a dive bombing Griffin.
Absolutely.
That's sick. Well, I was going to say too, for anybody who's interested in the mechanics of this, I just want to applaud you, Matt, for the simplicity of the mechanics of this, because the Griffins don't just act like animal companions. And that's important to note, that there's a very small, simple rule set, because the Griffins act on the Convoker's turn. And there's the list of tricks that Matt mentioned. These tricks, quote unquote, they are so useful. There are things like you can have them guard like a sentry. You can have them patrol an area. You can have them go and fetch something for you. So it's got a really simple, interesting mechanical rule set that's a little different than anything you've seen in 5th edition. Yeah. So You can even reskin just the Griffin portion to be anything else in your campaign world, and it's balanced and it works well.
Yeah. And you guys did some cool stuff with your Griffins in the game that we ran, where I can't remember who it was, but they leapt off of their Griffin and then told their Griffin to patrol, and basically had the Griffin flying overhead during the battle, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really cool things that I love about the Griffins. And honestly, I mean, you could reskin it as you have owlbear companions. You have, I mean, it basically you can just
don't tempt me.
Shove it onto something else. But the important thing is it's not all just combat. While they do act on your turn and stuff, the Convokers are like sort of, I mean, they grow up with these Griffins, or they raise them rather, and you know they're very. I feel like it has a lot of opportunity for role play, not just hey, it's another thing, go fight it. You know, oh, you go off. It's like no, it's not fodder. This is your life mate basically.
Yeah.
This thing is as closer than your brothers in arms. So, I really love that.
Yeah, there's actually a section in the book about what happens if a Convoker loses their Griffin and vice versa, and how a Griffin can take on a second rider, or a Convoker can take on a second Griffin, but it's never quite the same as that bond that you achieve when you train them from birth, and you're also being trained at the same time as a Convoker initiate. So.
Yeah.
So a question from John Poland asked about who the artists were in the book. So a majority of the art was done by our good friend Jake Perez. Would you mind flipping to one of the Jake Perez pieces there?
Absolutely. I'm going to flip to my favorite character in here, and it's so hard. I'm flipping sideways. A lot of people can't see this. I am flipping sideways.
Dude, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, man. I love this Arundel art.
Yes.
I freaking love this. So, yeah, Jake Perez made a lot of this art, a lot of the interior art.
Yep, and the cover was done by John Pintar, who has sort of been, he's kind of been like my Larry Elmore. Like, he's the guy that I go to, like, he sort of gets Aeronoth at a very intense level. He's done all of the covers for the Aeronoth books. He did Wayward Wanderer and Brook, and he also did the Stone Rift cover, which you can see if you go to our Facebook page. The Stone Rift cover is up there as well. He did that absolutely gorgeous cover art of the floating islands of Eros, which is where the Convocation is headquartered.
Yep. I love it.
And then
let's not forget, I was going to say, let's not forget our very own Tim.
And Tim,
probably the most popular section of the book too.
Yes.
Is one in which he went ham on.
Yeah.
But Tim did a lot of the interior art. He did basically all the interior art that was not done by Jake Perez, including the Convocation logo.
Yeah, and he did the Griffins, all of the magic items. Tim did.
He put helmets on the characters.
Yeah, he did. Yep. And also, it's important to note too that the awesome textures and backgrounds and different page elements that you see are all designed by Tim as well.
Yes.
So he does an amazing job.
We work him to death.
Absolutely. And then, as mentioned previously, the map at the front of the book was done by our good friend Nate over at WASD20. He has a mapping endeavor called Sellsword Maps. You should go check it out. He has a website for it where you can commission your own map, and you can get a map that looks as gorgeous as that one does. I'm so happy with that map.
I love it.
Yeah, it was definitely a team effort doing the art for this book, but I love bringing together different styles and things like that. So, here's a question: could your Griffin be able to be trained to utilize sorcery, such as giving it rune-like tattoos for fire breath? So that's an awesome idea. There aren't strict rules for that in the book, but that is a really, really neat idea. I like that. I'm sure that you could house rule that really easily with storing spells and things like that. You looking at the wizard's familiar mechanic, where the wizard can essentially cast a spell on a familiar that they can then use later when they want to. You could very easily do that with the Griffin as well.
for sure. I think the answer to that question is almost always yes.
Yeah, of course.
Can I do this? Yeah,
of course.
absolutely.
Especially if it involves giving a griffin fire breath.
And I think that's again, I want to just stress, because occasionally people will contact us, whether they contact you, Matt, you, Barker, or Tim and I about whether, Aeronaut, hey, I want to run a game in Aeronaut, what do you think? We're like, absolutely. We love to see stuff in our worlds, or even if you just take the Convocation or take the Peacemakers or take any part of our world and put it in your own. We'd love to hear about that stuff.
Seriously.
So definitely, if you do something like that, post about it in the Absolute Tabletop group. Basically anything RPG related goes, so questions or posting inspiration or asking, hey, can you guys help me flesh this part out? I mean, just absolutely go for that, and we love to see stuff like that. So like they said, almost always the answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we put these books out for a reason, so we want you to use these. We want you to use them in your games and talk about them and share them around and stuff. So, so what is your guys' favorite part of this book? What's your favorite section? What did you enjoy working on the most? I already said mine is the Griffin section, but I didn't know if you guys had your own personal favorites.
So, the important thing to remember. Okay, so I think Barker just turned to his favorite. The important thing to remember is by the time we finish these books, I don't want to look at it anymore. I hate to say that, but it happens.
James,
that
I'm
way.
so with you. I need to take a break. I just don't want to ever look at it again.
Honestly, 3 weeks after Default came out, that was one of the coolest books I had ever read. But I hated Default for a solid 2 weeks.
After Sewers came out, I was like, Ninja Turtles can go to hell. Just hell. Every book's like that. After Be a Better Battle Master, I was like, you know what? Screw mass combat. I'm never running another mass combat game in my entire life.
But if I had to pick a favorite part, I would have to say just the whole NPCs section. There is something about these printed stat blocks that just gets my goat in a good way. And it's just a bunch of really cool stuff that you can, flip through and basically use. I mean, you have this book, and again, if you wanted to throw Griffin into your game, grab your copy of the Convocation off the shelf, throw it on, behind your DM screen, and there you go. You've got a whole stat block of it. It's basically, I wouldn't say a mini monster manual, but the idea being there's, I think 4 to 6 NPCs, 7 NPCs, including the 2 Griffins. And, but I think maybe this isn't the book. There's one book. No, this isn't the book. Okay, forget it. There's one book where we put something I really love in the front matter, but that wasn't this one. So then, in that case, my favorite is the NPCs.
I forgot about that too, Jim.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Oh man. We'll have to showcase it whenever that one comes out. I can't remember which one it's in. What is it in?
I think it's yours. Which one was it? Maybe not.
Yours? Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyway, Tim, what's your favorite part?
I'm a little mechanics skunk ape. So I love me some mechanics.
Tim was a game designer in a previous life. Tim designed games
in a previous week. What are you talking about?
Yeah, in a previous 2 hours.
In a previous weekend. So to create a Convoker, there's a section that you gain these boons, is what they're called. And one of the things that James and I always talk about is we love learning the rules of a game because you could almost always look at a board game or an RPG, and it sets this rule system in place, and then the different abilities purposefully bend or break the rules to give players different advantages. And so the boon section of the Convocation is essentially like 4 or 5 full pages of feats that you gain as the different order, depending on who you are, of Convoker. So as he's flipping through, you've got the Envoy boons, and you have the Chaplain boons and the Warden boons, and they all bolster the kind of Convoker you are. So I love getting my hands in there and just going nuts on those mechanics. That was a lot of fun. That's my favorite section.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what I picked as my favorite section, which I think is I know I'm biased here. I think this is one of the most beautiful spreads in any RPG book I've seen. I feel like this is the best timeline I've ever seen designed, and I'm not complimenting myself here. You should all know I'm complimenting Tim. This is the best timeline of a setting I've ever seen designed in an RPG. I love the squares. I think the colors are beautiful. I love the fact that it teaches me about Aeronoth and little blurbs because I love history of worlds, man. This is why I started GMing, was world building and lore, and I'm just, it's hard for me to visualize it though without a timeline. This, and it goes like, I think back even further, like, so it's we're talking 2 pages of timeline. This is my favorite section because it's gorgeous. It teaches me everything I want to know as a game master ever, and it's just awesome. And it was cool to see finally in print.
Yeah, and this was a big deal for me too because I had to solidify the history of Aeronoth. I had to actually nail down what pertinent events the Convocation was involved in, and so that was kind of a really fun experience for me, as like laying out that history and really solidifying like what has Aeronoth witnessed in the last 2,000 years since the Convocation has been around. So.
And an important thing I want to mention about this was so beautiful that we absolutely, no question, had to rip it off for our book that came after this one, the Copper Jackals. So Tim and I ended up writing a timeline that was twice as long, which shouldn't surprise anyone, about the Copper Jackals in our book, and that is the next book that we will be doing print based on, unless something goes wrong. That will be the next book that comes to print, and that will be the next book we do a flip-through of, so we will definitely talk about it then as well. But it's the same style, and it's just beautiful. It's just one of the coolest, like, lore-packed sections, both in this book and the Copper Jackals book.
Yeah, and we're going to do, there's going to be a similar timeline in the Stone Rift book that is specifically centered around the events that have happened in the Dwarven city of Stone Rift. So Tim can look forward to designing that for me, which will be great.
Yeah, and I can't wait. I can't wait to finally do a 1-page timeline. I'm kidding. No, it was important to me when we first started the discussion of a timeline. My immediate thought was, those are always boring. I skim them, and I know I start with the best intentions at the beginning, and I'm like, oh, okay, Lord Drake Edmund in 5599 did da blah blah blah. Okay, let me get to a picture. And maybe that's just my small brain. So when we were discussing it, and I was like, hey, I think I want to do some pictures. And then we started kind of going back and forth. And I will not forget this. Do you guys remember this? We were working on stuff, and we were pretty tight on the deadline. We're getting there. And I'm like, there were a couple of requests. Hey, Tim, can you do this real quick? Can you do that? And I was like, no, I'm working on the timeline. And everyone was like, still? Like, what? Because I guess you guys didn't realize I was doing pictures.
Yeah.
So you guys were just expecting like a bar, whatever. And I'm like, and finally you're like, dude, how long are you going to work on that timeline? And then I shared the 2 pages. And I was like,
and we were like, oh.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And I remember Matt in the chat goes, Tim, are you doing pictures for every bullet point? I was like, yes, that's what I've been doing for 2 hours. What did you guys think I was doing? I wasn't just shirking duties.
This is my favorite. I'm going to come out with Be a Better Timeline Master, and it's just going to all be written in timeline format. And that's actually it's going to be written by Tim Carney.
I was just going to say it's going to be Tim's diary from that night.
Yeah.
Hour 5.
Hour 5, crying blood.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hour
the timeline
5,
goes on.
still telling me to hurry up.
So there's a really good question here from DMG. I already sort of answered it in the chat, but I think we probably want to talk about it. What do we have in the works, guys? He wants to know what other projects are we working on, what's on the horizon. I think we each have something to talk about. I've already mentioned this, but I'm working on Stone Rift, which is going to be a supplement centered around one of the Dwarven cultures in Aeronoth. They're a Dwarven culture that lives in a canyon and harnesses lightning from the storms that rage overhead. And it's really coming along. I'm really happy with how it's shaping up. What about you, Barker? What are you working on?
So aside from just going all in on Harbinger today, one of the big things that I've been working on is book 2 of Be a Better Campaign Master.
Yeah.
So this book is called Be a Better Campaign Master, book 2, Telling the Story. So the first book was Building the World, and now we're going to be creating a campaign. And there's going to be a lot going into it, but it's super, super big. That's what you'll know, is that it starts with a D100 table of different things, different sample stories, campaign story arcs, and each one of those in that D100 table will get its own page spread about tips on starting, running, ending, that type of campaign, including roll tables and just fun advice and fun sandboxy stuff. So that's the book that I'm really excited for to come out with, because Campaign Master 1 was just like my breaking the ice of what I wanted to build in terms of RPG content, and book 2 is just taking that to the next stop in the GM's repertoire.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for that book. All right, James, what are you working on, man?
And so before any of that happens, basically to think of this stuff chronologically, it's not super set in stone, but this should be basically what we're going to do, is we just finished the Convocation print on demand. The Copper Jackals is currently being printed to, it's a proof. They're going to send it to us, and assuming that everything looks good, because we're still kind of working this out, that will come very soon in print. But that's all stuff you've seen. After that, then we plan on doing Stone Rift. That's the next one on the schedule. That's what Matt was talking about. But then sometime after that, what we want to do is Tim and I are working on probably our largest supplement to date, which is a big deal considering that we currently hold the title for the most pages in a supplement on accident with the Copper Jackals. Tim and I's next book is going to be called A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin, and it is basically going to be a rough, basic overview of more or less all of Dragongrin. It's going to sort of cover in depth the major unique identifiers of Dragongrin. So it's going to talk about the Typhons. It's going to talk about other things, like the Imminence. It's going to talk about how Druids get their power. A lot of little things that you need to know about the world just to run stuff there, just to sort of steep you in it and give you the idea. We're also doing sort of an atlas. We're going to take all of the areas of it, and I want to mention that a lot of this is sort of not quite set in stone, but we have a basic idea of what we want to do. This is a bit of a wish list right now, but we want to cover all of the different regions of Dragongrin and give you a rundown, but we've come up with this really cool template of a way to do it that doesn't fill too much in, but gives you just enough to make it really inspiring.
Yeah.
And then
Well, I was just going to mention that the key phrase we're using when we're building this thing, we're calling it an Atlas of Inspiration. So it's like we're making sure to give you just enough to get you hungry and inspired, but not so much that you have to learn history like you're reading a textbook.
Exactly. So that's going to be real big, and yeah, that's what's up next for us officially.
All right, Tim, what are you working on, man, aside from Dead Man's Guide?
So in the cracks of just being mad in the brain over Harbinger right now, one of the things that I've really been digging into with the help of you guys is we are playtesting right now. We posted the playtest to the group today, naval combat rules for 5th edition. And they are, I think, in the spirit of 5th edition. There are some pretty good naval combat rules that I've seen out there, but to me, speaking from just my limited experience with Pathfinder and my experience with 3.5, they sort of go away from the spirit of 5e a little bit and get a little more tactical, which is okay, but I wanted to come up with a naval combat system that you could still run over Hangouts and that still had that spirit of theatrical combat that 5e has. So right now we're playtesting, and what you can do is you start off by building your vessel. It's a very simple, streamlined, kind of truncated version of character creation almost. Like you get to pick your munitions, and you get to pick kind of what makes the ship better than others. And like the bottom line is this. We're playtesting this because, one, we want to release some awesome naval combat rules for 5e, and we think that'll be super awesome. But 2, once these rules are streamlined, there's a solid chance that we might see something like this as spaceship combat in Harbinger.
So
Yes, ma'am.
Smart money is on yes.
So we're really excited about having a robust, simple, and fun naval rule set that will then be augmented to give you a wicked cool, customizable spaceship battle rule set. And so that's what I'm working on. That's what's keeping me up at night right now.
Absolutely, man. And it is. I love the naval combat rules, and I think I'm gonna try and run something here soon using those rules because they are so streamlined and simple and cool, and yeah, they just work, man. So we've got a few really good questions here that I want to answer. I think we're gonna take just a couple more questions and then probably call it here. We've been going for about an hour. We got started a little bit late, so we'll go for a few more minutes here. So Chickambus asks, how do you become a Convoker? Is it a gauntlet of trials, or are you raised from youth? So I make a point of stressing in the Convocation book that the Convocation does not discriminate. They don't discriminate based on sex, based on race, based on age, based on any of that stuff. They look at who you are as a person. They look at your skill set, and that's how they determine if you are able to become an initiate in the Convocation. Most of the time, you're brought in by an existing Convoker. There are cases where a Convoker will be in a tavern somewhere, and he'll see a fighting pit, and he'll see the fighters fighting, and he'll see maybe he'll feel drawn to one of those fighters and say, I think you have what it takes to be a Convoker, and take them in, take them under their wing, and train them. So a lot of it is sponsorship, finding somebody who's capable and bringing them in. But there are cases where people will go to a Convocation headquarters and plead their case, and they will be tested and brought in. But there's a lengthy initiation process of Convoker initiation. That's what's laid out on that page that Barker has on his screen there. So, yeah, that's the basics of it. And then real quick, a couple of people have asked if we're having trouble balancing weaponry in Harbinger. We haven't got super in-depth into it, but it's going to be interesting play testing this and seeing how it works, because obviously Harbinger it's going to have elements of science fiction. It's going to be predominantly science fiction. And so there are going to be firearms and things like that involved in the game. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
And one quick note about that, I think it also might be a concern that goes away because of this. The reason why firearms tend to be a little dicey in fantasy games is because the armor isn't up to snuff with the firearms in most cases. In a sci-fi setting, a weapon is still deadly, but a gun isn't going to be as deadly against power armor.
Yeah.
So I think part of that disparity of the tech levels is going to make it much more balanced than I think going in than a fantasy firearm.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is very much an aside, but the Fate core book, which is, as far as I know, is pay what you want. I mean, give them a few dollars, but you've got to read this book. Touches on the disparity between armor and weapons, whether different weapons or something. Whether or not you want to play Fate, read that book. It's got some of the best storytelling advice and just other really good stuff in general. Now we have one more.
Very surprised if the Fate core book was pay what you want. By the way, the Fate core book. Maybe you're thinking Fate Accelerated. I don't think it's pay what you want.
It's not.
The core book.
Maybe not the core book, but there's some rule set that's free, isn't it?
Fate Accelerated, I think, is free. Fate Accelerated is free to download, I think, unless I've gone crazy. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Fate core is pay what you want.
Yeah, that's
really?
Yeah. That's what I mean. I'm like, everybody needs to own that book because, I mean, technically it could be free. I mean, I threw him a few dollars after I read it, but...
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I was thinking the physical book was pay what you want. I'm like, dude, there's
no.
Okay,
no. They're just giving them away.
I did also buy the physical book, but the PDF, you can get
No, dude, I met with their CEO, and he's like, I hate money. I can't stand it.
And I hate these books. Get them out of my garage.
Basically, what they do is they have a option on the site to buy the book for $5, or they have it for free. And what they basically say is, here's the free version. It's the complete version. Download it. Say, look, read it, and if you like it, come back, give us $5. That's how they do it. So
that's exactly what I did. And then I did that. I gave them some money for the PDF, and then I saw the book was on sale one day on Amazon, so I got it. Totally.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing because once I read it, I was like, this isn't a rule system. This is a Bible on how to play RPGs with some rules scattered through it. So it's definitely worth it.
But we did get another really good question. And this was, what is the timeline and basic process of building a single supplement? And I think that we should end on this one because, I don't know, this is just something that I would be interested to share with people because the number one thing I didn't realize is exactly how much goes into making something. The first supplement we made was Be a Better Battle Master, which actually, fun fact, it was originally the working title was Be a Better Siege Master, and I know that because that's still what the file is called on my computer.
Yep.
But it's Be a Better Battle Master, and so you start out, right, and you're like, all right, we want to write a supplement.
I'm going to take it back a step further than that because at first, it was just Be a Better Siege, and I'm not kidding.
You're not kidding.
And so and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because this is an iterative process, and you have to have some idea. Because joking aside, now looking back, that's not a great idea. To call it Be a Better Siege? Be a Better Siege Master is so much better. But at the time, we were like, I don't know, what should we call it? So if you feel that way writing a supplement, you're on the right track.
Yeah, just to touch on what Tim's saying, it's iterative. So the idea is it's not going to look good until the last day. At least that is the case for all of ours. Sewers Under Samuel is a good example. It was pretty good about a week or 2 weeks from release. So we'll start at the beginning and then I'll talk about how we do that. This is our process. Other people may do it differently. It depends, whatever. But the idea is first we come up with an idea. This usually happens a few weeks before we even start working on it. We say, all right, guys, what's next? And so, for example, we'll take Sewers Under Sandwall because this was something we all worked on. What we did was, all right, we do that. We have a hangout. We all get together and we talk about all of the stuff that we want in there. Usually there's a brainstorm before that. There's a doc that we use Google Docs to collaborate on everything because it allows us to have one thing in one place that we can all update and it keeps our changes. So we go in there. We just throw some stuff in there. We talk about it, whatever. Maybe we'll mention it in some Facebook chats that we have, but in general, we're not working on it. We're just brainstorming. I'd love to see this. I'd love to see that. I have this idea. In the case of Sewers Under Sandwall, we had a little bit of a structure already. Matt had started writing this way before Absolute Tabletop. Tim had picked it up at that point and added a few things, and so we had a starting point, a solid starting point of a few things we wanted to do. So we get together, and we all talk about the brainstorm. And we say, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that. We sort of just suss out, okay, these are going to be the sections.
Yeah, and we do that in a Google Hangout. We call it a kickoff.
Yeah, so that's
just to kind of get the vision and the tone. Like, there's a project manager who's in charge of the final book. So in the case of the Copper Jackals, it was James and I. And that person makes the final call. But in that Hangout, it's like, all right, let's cast the vision here. What are we making?
Exactly. And then so the other thing about the Hangout is that starts our process. That is the first official day that we're supposed to be working on it. Usually whoever the main person, the project manager as we call it, in the case of Sewers Under Sandwall was Matt because he had started writing it, and it's important to have one person that has the final say on stuff. Basically what happened was we start out and Matt does a lot of the writing. It's his baby, especially for some of the other books. This one we all collaborated on, so we wrote it a little bit more, but those first 2 weeks we are all writing it. I mean, we just, like I said, we have a rough timeline, or rather outline of what we want to do. So there's a few sections. In the case of Sandwall, there's the city, there's the sewers, and then there's sort of a few big encounters, climax encounters at the end. And so we split those up, and we're all writing them and giving each other ideas and jumping in. But this is all a little bit unofficial. But again, the other important things that you have to note is that we have to figure out art. We work on books for 3 weeks. Maybe it's 4 weeks. But the idea is we have a few weeks that we work on a book, but you have to get art as soon as possible. So you have to know what you need people to be drawing, basically. And so the idea is that before you really start writing, you have to say, okay, we need this. In the case of, I want to say Copper Jackals, the case of Sewers Under Sandwall, we needed a picture of Slimy Jack. We wanted a picture of Snowhide, an albino bugbear that's in there. We wanted a few other pieces of art, of goblins and different monsters in there. And we had to know that beforehand because you need a lot of lead time on the art. So I believe, and correct me guys if I get wrong because I don't remember the exact schedule, but the idea is we write it for 2 weeks. Or is it just 1 week? I think we have basically 1 week.
We spend I think we spend 5 or 6 weeks on each book now.
Oh, okay.
It's 4 or 5 weeks. There's 2 weeks of writing, 1 week of editing, 1 week of layout, and one of those weeks of writing is what we call the focus week, which is where there's no crossover with any other projects. We're just focusing on the one.
And so I think that is an important thing to mention, is basically when we kicked off Sewers Under Sandwall, we were in the second writing week of whatever came before it. And so the idea there is that we are constantly trying to keep up. If we just gave 6 weeks to every supplement, of course, we'd have 6 weeks between releases. And in order to cut down on that, because of the way we split everything up, if somebody's laying the supplement out, that's a one-person job at this point, usually. Maybe 2 in some cases. That means somebody else can be working on something else, and we can be doing other things. So there's 2 weeks of writing, and then, or I guess maybe, like you said, 3. And then there's 1 week where nothing else is going on. All of us, our only job is to add content to the docs. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how many misspellings there are. It's not important. Then we go into the editing phase, where we all just read through the docs over and over and over again to catch any different mistakes we've made, to just figure it out, to sort of mold it into its final form.
And I think molded is a good phrase, because it's at that phase, to me, that the consistency starts to take shape.
Exactly.
The docs are so disparate in a way, and just know that it's like they're so separate and things are called different things, and so that final pass is like, okay, time to polish this fully and make it cohesive. Yeah.
And that is an important thing to note, is that it's molding because, like Tim said, there are very disparate sections and whatnot, and the important thing is we have to sort of all line them up before we start laying them out. There's very little worse than laying out a supplement and then a section changes, because a few things happen. One, you have to make sure that the art gets updated, or not the art, sorry, the text gets updated. If it was updated in a doc, it has to be updated inside of the layout. And then if that happens, we need to make sure that nothing moved, and if it did, then we have to relay it out. So editing happens, and then layout starts. Now layout, we do a week. We release on Fridays, so usually what will happen is, usually it's either Matt or I will start laying out on the weekend, and we will have something by Monday or Tuesday, just a rough, we threw it all in there kind of idea, and then it's up to everybody, usually not the person that's laying it out because they've been staring at it, to just look at the whole thing. We'll kind of release a very unfinished copy, throw it on the Google Drive, and it's everybody's job to look at it, to say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, fix these tables, all of the little things. Now, a lot of you that have been with us for a while know that doesn't always work very well, because there are always typos. But we have that week of layout, and then on that last day, that Friday at noon, we release the book. We release it for download, and then we sit back, basically.
And then we sleep for 1,000 years.
But actually, based on the way it all works, if I'm laying out, I was laying out, say a book, Copper Jackals, everybody else was still working. Tim was sending off to make sure that the art was getting done for, whichever artist we're working with on our next book. Matt and Barker were helping write, as well as Tim, whatever the next supplement was, while I was laying out. It's sort of, we've layered all of the responsibilities in such a way that we're always doing something, and it allows us to shorten the time between releases. So it's 3 weeks rather than, say, 6 weeks.
And let me go out there and say, special thanks to Google Drive.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah,
Google Drive is the reason Absolute Tabletop exists.
Yeah.
So to extend upon that, because we're going to finish up here, but to extend upon that, what we're going to do is we're then about a week after our digital books come out, and this is still sort of putty, we're not 100% sure on this, we're going to test this out, that's when our print books are going to come out. So the reason we're doing that is because, one, we have to finish the book and send it off for a proof, which we finish the book normally the night before we give it to you guys. There's no like lead time on those. And two, you guys always find typos, and there's nothing wrong with that because we put typos in there, not on purpose, obviously, but we would rather not.
If you take all the typos and decipher them, it's a secret message about naval combat rules.
Dude, it's our very first AGR, and nobody's won so far. Nobody's put together the pieces of the puzzle. It's really disheartening. But basically, all that to say that then about a week after, we will be able to start selling print copies of a revised version with most, if not all, of the typos fixed, because we still go back and see typos in old books that we've written. So that's about front to back what it looks like when we make a supplement.
That's a great rundown of the process, James, but you forgot the fetal position, you forgot the crying at 4 a.m. in the morning, you forgot
the diarrhea.
Yeah, the diarrhea, the misunderstandings in the chat that lead to us fighting for an hour and then realizing that we were both arguing for the same point.
Yeah, the ridiculous, like, 4 a.m. jokes that if you try to explain to your significant other the next morning, it feels like a fever dream. You're like, no, trust me, it was really funny.
Right.
When the art laid his head on the roll table, I promise.
Trying to get an important word in the chat when people are talking about poop, like, and there's just, it's like throwing a single important message into a chain gun, hoping you can point out the right bullet as it comes out. Like, it's just impossible.
It's like a spinning fan, and you just kind of chuck something into it and just hope that it ends up on the other side.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, so great questions, guys. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna let these guys have a little parting word as we end here. Thank you for joining us. Today has been awesome. We're so excited to finally bring our first physical book to you guys to have to hold in your hands, put on your bookshelf, and use at your game table. When you guys start getting these books, when they start coming in the mail, send us pictures. We want to see them. We want to make sure that they're exactly as you want them to be. So,
where can they send the pictures, Matt? Where do you want them to post those specifically? AbTab, the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group?
Yeah, if you go to Facebook and you search for Absolute Tabletop Official Group, you will find our Facebook group. It's an awesome community for gamers to come and hang out, organize games, and talk about RPGs of all kinds. You can come there, and that's the best and easiest way to engage with us directly, ask us questions, offer feedback, all of that kind of stuff. So, again, you can go to absolutetabletop.com to pick up the Convocation, and actually the Aeronaut sale is, I think, still running right today. We haven't changed those prices. Is that correct?
No, I believe that is no longer running.
Never mind, then. Forget I said that.
Never mind that. You missed out. You missed the boat, kids.
That is why you need to sign up for our e-newsletter.
You got to go to our newsletter, and then you'll be good to go.
Matt, you would have known that if you would have signed up for our newsletter.
I know, man.
Yeah, if you didn't write it every week.
Anyway, okay. Thank you again for joining us, guys. Go to absolutetabletop.com if you're interested in checking out Aeronaut the Convocation. It's available PDF, book, and if you buy it in book form, you get the PDF for free. Definitely go check it out. I'm going to toss it over to these guys to give their parting words, and then we're going to leave you guys to enjoy your weekends. All right, Barker, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barker. I'm the guy you've been staring at just sitting here because Matt still has me clicked on in the Hangout, which is perfectly fine. So I apologize for that. But, yeah, I come out with the Be a Better Game Master line of things at Absolute Tabletop, and the next one you can expect is part 2 of the Be a Better Campaign Master series, all about telling the story. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope you are too. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Tim.
Awesome. I am Werner Herzog, a film legend from Munich, Germany. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm Tim from Tabletop Terrors, and we do fun-loving RPG inspiration for players of all experience levels. If you're not subscribed, go to Tabletop Terrors and subscribe, because we're always talking about what's happening at Absolute Tabletop. We're always plugging the group and staying involved. So be sure to go there, subscribe to our channel, and we'll keep you updated on all of the releases. And this coming Monday, you'll be able to see on our channel a Splat Book Roulette using that very book, Aeronaut, The Convocation. And I am sorry, I just saw the chat, Matt got me. Okay, I'm sorry. So you will see us flipping through the book. We'll point to a random spot in the book, and for 5 minutes or less, we're going to come up with some inspiration using the Convocation. So please tune into that.
So I'm going to go ahead and take over here. I am the only person that works at Absolute Tabletop. I own the whole company, and I make everything because the other guys apparently can't say anything to dispute me. This is legally binding. No, seriously, I am the other half of Tabletop Terrors, along with Tim, and of course a quarter of Absolute Tabletop. Tim really covered our channel very well. The thing that I want to say is that I hang out a lot in the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, and if you guys aren't a part of that, you should definitely go sign up. You can go find the official Absolute Tabletop group on Facebook. Ask to join, we'll add you there, and it's just a great place for inspiration, to find games, to play games, to talk about stuff, hear about our new releases, just everything RPG related. Very warm and welcoming community, and I can't wait to see you guys there.
For sure. All right. Thanks everyone again for joining us tonight.
Hold on.
What?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, boy.
For sure.
For sure.
There's Barker playing out a GIF based on the movie Push by Sapphire.
Major Bummer. Hard to watch, based on the novel Major Bummer by Manipulate.
Yeah, this is about to devolve. So what were you saying, Matt?
I was going to say that we're going to end this hangout before it gets too silly. So thank you everyone again for joining us. Go to absolutetabletop.com if you're interested in seeing more from us. And we will see you guys soon. Everyone have a good weekend. Take care. And happy gaming all.